guys, and welcome back to another video. So, it is Monday, therefore it is another sketchbook video drawing session day. I actually was a bit indecisive on exactly what I wanted to do for today's video, more in terms of like the medium. Oh, by the way, I always use like this little wooden coaster thing because it's like the perfect height to kind of like even out my sketchbook at this point, just because I don't really want it sloping down while I'm drawing. But you can kind of see the hesitation while I'm trying to figure out what mediums or whatever tools or supplies that I want to use for today's drawing session. So instead, I am going to default a little bit. So I ended up just wanting to cut out some sticker paper to be around the same size as my sketchbook to lay it down so we have no bleed through. Now usually I don't do this immediately. I like using the sticker paper to cover up bleed through, but because of the way how I've worked in the sketchbook, I do have sketches on the other side, so I'm going to protect them by putting down a sticker sheet. I'm just using some sort of matte sticker paper because I find that works the best and it kind of imitates similar to like, normal drawing paper for the most part. For tools for today, I'm using the high-tech OC CLENA multi-pen, but I have it with my mechanical pencil leads right here. So I'm using the 0.5, I think it's the Uni Nano Dia Color leads. So I'm going to be using, I think, light blue initially, then I'm going to switch to the darker blue so it's easier for you guys to see. And then for line art, we're going to be using the Energel CLENA, and I'm going to show you guys in a little bit what we're going to be doing because we are going to be doing inking first. Luckily, despite how much I've actually used this particular ink cartridge, we're almost at the very end, but luckily it didn't run out during this session. But I do have an extra one just in case, and I bought like a whole new pack recently. I think it was like the last few months I got like I think it's like a 20 pack or something like that, or maybe it's a 12 pack, so that I never really run out. Because that's like one thing that's like the downside of using traditional art is the fact that there's a possibility that you might run out of your favorite materials, or maybe one of your favorite things discontinue, which I have had happen, unfortunately. So even though, I don't know, have I talked about this? Probably. At the beginning of like any sketchbook video, Monday video, I do say like, oh, we're doing a sketchbook video, therefore it's Monday, or it's Monday, therefore I'm going to be doing a sketchbook video. So I like to dedicate Monday specifically as like a time for me to post some sort of traditional art video. Hopefully it'll be in my sketchbook, but if not, sometimes it's a watercolor painting or experimenting with some other type of traditional medium, just because I do like the tactility of doing traditional mediums, or just I don't want to like lose that, I guess. I feel like nowadays digital is definitely more prominent, and I'm kind of glad because of how accessible it is now compared to like back when I was a teenager especially. But something about traditional art I definitely think like can't be replaced, so I do want to keep up with it, and I find it a lot more therapeutic. But let's try to return back to that thought a little bit later and talk about what we are going to be drawing for today's little drawing session. So for this spread, I already had an idea or an inkling of what I wanted to draw, and like kind of like more specifically is that I want to draw Selwin because he's kind of my go-to whenever I have zero ideas on who to draw. Typically, I like to draw characters. Sometimes I will draw like things like objects or just do brainstorming. But for the most part, I do like drawing characters. So I did gravitate towards drawing Selwin to kind of let my head go a little bit brain empty while I'm doodling. But recently, my Pinterest has been suggesting me a lot of outfits that I feel like would have fit Kaisen or Selwin. The first one that I ended up drawing on the very left-hand side, so like the kind of like mid-sized Selwin right here, I thought I was gonna end up drawing Kaisen, actually. It'll kind of make a little bit more sense why he's kind of like at the forefront of my brain, even though I kind of had an inkling that I was going to be drawing Selwin for today's spread. But the kind of premise for today is going to be focusing on just wanting to draw different outfits for Selwin, because like I said, when I open up Pinterest, sometimes you click on one outfit and then, related searches and posts will show up. So I clicked on one outfit that I thought would be kind of cute, and then I thought maybe it'll fit more Kaisen, but then the rest of the suggested results, I guess, gave me stuff that was more affiliated what I would think of towards like Selwyn's aesthetic. So I ended up combining a few outfits together and just like trying to think of different outfits that maybe Selwyn would want to wear or would fit him in general. Now, because Selwyn's kind of like my comfort character, or kind of the conglomeration of a lot of the characteristics, visually especially, of things I like from characters and like, you know, things that I like drawing. So one thing I do like drawing is obviously sweaters, which I didn't really draw any today. But the other thing that I really like for clothing especially are like chunky sleeves, but with tighter cuffs. So you kind of get more of like that bell shape. I think it's called a bell sleeve, something like that. So, or like lantern sleeves, I think maybe that's what it's called. I do have like, I think a sweater or two that kind of has that shape. And not only are they like really comfy, I just find it really fun to draw. I do like when it's like tighter around kind of like the portion of your hand and a portion of your wrist, and then the rest of the sleeve just kind of like bellows out. It's just a fun shape, and I feel like shading and just like rendering and stuff, it's just like very fun and easy to do. So it's kind of like one of the favorite kind of types of sleeves that I like to draw. So doing jackets with that, doing sweaters, it could be dress shirts, it could be blouses, anything like that. So I ended up giving Selwyn a few of those here and there. I'm trying to think what else. Jackets are fun, especially when ones that are more towards like semi-formal or almost towards dark academia, or just like the academia kind of aesthetic in general. I prefer dark academia, but I think that's more also towards the fact like of the color palette and stuff, and which is kind of like more up my alley. So basically for the initial part that I'm doing right now, I'm just going to be sketching, and I'm using the kind of blue lead that's one of my favorite from the Uni Nano Dia Color LEDs, because it's very smooth and very creamy. So I'm just quickly sketching out all of Selwyn so that I can knock out how I want everything to be placed. After that, we'll switch on over to do some inking. So for the most part, tried my best to fit at least 4 different little outfits or different Selwyns on the page so that we can get as much in as we can, but I don't want to cram it up too much, because I know inking is going to be a little bit on the longer side for what we're going to be doing for today. So here are the close-ups of our sketches, and luckily I did end up using the blue lead rather than like the photo or light blue, because it's much easier for you guys to see because of the lighting in my room and the fact that things do feel like they get a little bit overexposed. So now we are switching over to line art. So I'm using, as usual, the Energel CLENA, but before we do that, I am going to be lightening up the sketch just a little bit here and there. One is mostly for kind of allowing the pen to stick a little bit more easily to the page. Sometimes if I put too much graphite or colored pencil or anything down, the ink just skips like a tiny bit more or doesn't want to start up, because it is like more of like a gel pen. It does kind of like roll and glide over places that are a little bit more slick rather than something that has a little bit more tooth or smoothness or just something a little bit more matte feeling. So I ended up using the kneaded eraser, lining it up, and then kind of getting rid of any graphite debris so that we can use the gel pen next. Also, usually while I'm like doodling and sketching, I tend to do my derp eyes or like my very simple eyes for my characters or just like whoever I'm drawing. But usually I would put the little white highlight in the very center of their eyes and kind of do a half and half of like upper half will be probably my pen color, and then the bottom half will be, if I'm using, let's say, water-based markers or I'm using alcohol markers, I'll make the bottom half like some sort of color. Otherwise, I will leave it empty. Or in this case, whenever I draw Selwyn, I have always put his highlight at the very bottom of his eyes. I don't really know why, but I feel like it just suits him. So typically when I doodle Selwyn, I will actually revert to this kind of like eye style rather than putting the highlight in the very dead center. But for the line art today, this is kind of like the plan that I had in my mind, is the fact that I've always shown you guys whenever I do like my 2-color spreads or I'm doing more of like a sketch kind of video, but I'm doing like inking afterwards, that my inking becomes very scritchy and scratchy. It's a little bit on the messier side, but I do take my time to if I want to add value by doing a lot of hatching and all that. But rarely do I do more clean line art in a sense. So I'm trying my best to keep it as clean as possible, because I thought instead of doing 2 colors today that we'll just rely on using 1 color for the entire spread, because I do like the monochromatic look as well. And I forget what other video I showed it, where I have like a Kaizen spread in my square sketchbook. And I think this is like from 2 years ago. Or I guess it feels weird to say 2 years ago when you're referring to 2024, but the fact that we're just at the very beginning still of 2026 is not quite 2 years. But I have a sketchbook from 2024 where I have like inked sketches of Kaizen. Then I went ahead and erased my sketch and then just left with these very clean dark lines. And then after that, I used an alcohol marker to kind of like carefully fill in the areas, making sure that the clothing folds were kind of prominent, making sure that I leave enough white of the page to kind of give our form a little bit more dimension rather than doing it very flat and making everything almost just one color. So this is what we're going to be doing today as well. Now, I think because of the thumbnail of the video, you probably will know that I will be using the color blue for Selwyn's spread. I was always kind of in a bit of a dilemma of what color do I think suits Selwyn the best. I know he has like a very prominent color of navy blue. His eyes are also like more of like navy blue to sunset colors. So sometimes I want to do more of like an orange, or I gravitate towards only wanting to do like a dual toned type of colored spread for him. But in this case, because blue is kind of like the more prominent color and I don't want to go too dark, so I am going to be doing like a mid-tone-ish blue, more a little bit like towards the lighter-ish side, just to make sure that my lines stand out. I did end up talking about like my small fear of like using too dark of colors and then not being able to see my line art. And one of you guys suggested I could use like a white pen potentially, and maybe I'll try using that, but I'm not too sure how well I can utilize it in terms of finding enough contrast between the white and then probably the dark color and the black of the line art. I might have to experiment to see whether or not I can use that to kind of use more darker colors in my color palettes here in my sketchbook. So I feel like inking is actually going to take up majority of today's video, just because the way how my camera and my lighting works, it kind of fluctuates a little bit too much. So I didn't really want to put this portion into time-lapse mode. And I know a lot of you guys actually find line art therapeutic to watch, so I thought I'll leave it in real time for the most part, but we're just going to have a lot of cuts because this did take me not like an incredibly long amount of time, but compared to the sketching and the coloring, it was much longer. I think the total time of me working on the spread was an hour and a half, hour and 20, according to like my video footage. And I am the type of person who records the entire session and try to cut down and whittle down the footage. So it usually gives me somewhat of an accurate time. Besides like breaks in between, or if I get up to go do something else and I come back, it just purely gives me like the drawing session time, I guess is the better way of putting it. But yes, because the inking portion is going to take up the majority of the entire drawing session, I don't think there's much to talk about the inking portion. I do just end up darkening some lines. Some areas I do try my best to fill as a solid black. There's some areas that I did a little bit of hatching, like under the neck, or if I want to do a little bit of a lighter shadow, then I'll do hatching. But the topic that I kind of wanted to revisit, and I briefly touched upon this, I think in a previous video sometime in December of last year, I'm trying to find a way where I can balance out my productivity and drawing time, but I don't mean it in a way that I feel like I don't have enough time to draw or I don't have enough time to, work on things. It's more the fact that more recently, especially 2025, I think was like the worst year for this, which is the fact that my brain might be a bit too overstimulated and overwhelmed with like sound, visually, everything. And it's been a while since I've actually just taken art supplies, go to like a couch or a table or my bed and have nothing but music and just my sketchbook and just drawing. Heck, it could be even my iPad and just drawing. But more recently, like I mentioned, got worse in 2025, where I always have to have like a stream open. I have to have some sort of VOD or like a long form video always open to watch in the background. And usually it's not too bad, but I never feel like I'm like fully committed to whatever I'm drawing. Oftentimes, like if I'm doing like a talking video and I'm doing this, I can't fully commit to it either because I'm more focusing on like the recording session, if that makes sense. So I don't really mind in terms of like if I'm doing recording, if I'm not like fully locked in per se. But for like sketchbook drawing or drawing for myself just casually, there's just some weird amount of stress that comes from just being overwhelmed in general. And I kind of miss the days where back in like uni, I would actually just put on my iPad? I don't know why I was going to say iPad. I did not have an iPad during uni. I got it right after uni. But I had an iPod Touch, and I've used an iPod Touch since I think my middle school days all the way up until uni. After uni, I switched fully to my phone, but I think, you know, like attention deficiency or just like the lack of people allowing themselves to be disconnected from internet and social media and stuff, I feel like it's just getting worse in general. And same goes for me. So I kind of miss the days where I would just turn on music. I would put the iPod down and I don't really have to look at it anymore and I can just draw. Or if I ever have to like look at my phone or my iPod, it's just like my photo gallery because I used to draw 17 mostly. And when I drew 17, the things that I was looking at in my photo gallery were like, oh, they have a cute outfit, so I'm going to draw them in that outfit. Oh, their hairstyle is really cute, or I like their outfit from blank performance, then I'll just look it up and just draw that. I'm not like looking up many references. I'm not trying to look for a pose. I'm not looking for color palettes. I'm not looking for... There's like too many things that might be me trying to predetermine what I want my stuff to look like, and it feels less freeing that way, where I'm not letting my brain just like barf on the page of whatever I want to draw. And I don't know, I kind of just miss the simpler times, so I kind of want to, you know, reel things back in a little bit more this year probably, especially for like sketchbook drawing, but even like having that relationship with my digital art again, where I would draw mostly for fun, but then being surrounded by my screens or being surrounded by too many options of being like, oh, I'm going to check my Instagram, I'm going to check my Twitter, I'm going to check what's on the YouTube, I'm going to check what's like new music and stuff. It's just like constantly my brain is buzzing. So I'm going to try my best. Eventually I will just revert back to bringing a few art supplies. I'm going to like go to the couch and just like sketch and draw for maybe like an hour or two, just like to unwind, or even doing this before I sleep, because my sleep schedule has been atrocious. I've been sleeping at 4 to 5 a.m., which is not great. I was never like an early sleeper, I guess. I always slept around like 1 to 2, but 4 to 5 is kind of pushing it for me. So I really need to fix that habit. So I need to stop looking at my screen at night. But enough about that weird rambly talk. Let's go ahead and kind of take our kneaded eraser. I'm lightening up the sketch once again. It's not going to be very visible to you guys, but it's kind of still present in kind of the spreads overall. But because of the color that I choose, it's going to be hidden even more. But like I mentioned, in the square sketchbook, I have a spread of Kaizen right here, kind of done with like much more cleaner line art to a certain extent, and then I colored the sketches with a purple, and I focused mostly on where I wanted light to be, the clothing folds, and just making sure that there's enough area of contrast so that we have our forms to kind of like read correctly. Hopefully that kind of makes sense to some degree. But also to make sure that I don't become too fussy with having to make sure everything looks a little bit more uniform and flat, I am going to be using an alcohol marker, hence why I wanted to use a piece of sticker paper. What is wrong with my brain today? Using sticker paper to kind of block out the one page, which is the left hand side, because I have a drawing on the back side that I don't want to accidentally be picking up any pigment, or I don't want bleed through, or just anything like that. So I already knew that I wanted to use alcohol markers, and I already had a plan that I wanted to do something similar to that Kaizen spread, where we're just going to be focusing on the lights and just the form of hopefully the clothing. I did do the hair very simply because I preferred not needing to think about it too much unless I do want like a specific lighting scheme. I just do 2 blocks of the hair and leaving kind of like this weird strip of white for the highlight. And I usually do this if I'm just doing very simple coloring for hair, and I did most of like the hair detailing probably in the line art instead. I think on the camera this blue reads a little bit more like cyan blue, which doesn't really fit Selwyn too much. I think in person it's a little bit more of like a dustier blue, almost in comparison to what you're seeing on the camera. It leans slightly more purple than green, like I said, in context with the camera. So unfortunately, it just looks really bright and almost highlightery. But I think it kind of fits for what I wanted. It's light enough that I'm not too worried about contrast with the line work, but it's not too light where it's like too pastel-y, if that makes sense. What else was I going to talk about for today? I think that's pretty much it, to be honest. I just wanted to have fun, draw some cute outfits for my OC Selwin. We're just doing some quick blocking in of shapes and colors so that we can have more of a monochromatic looking spread. And like I mentioned, you don't have to do a 2-colored spread. You don't even have to do like a 1-color spread. You can do black and white. You can also just do graphite and paper, which I was actually very tempted. I think at the beginning of the video, you could have saw that I was actually reaching for my mechanical pencil instead, but I ended up grabbing my multi-pen and then the Energel CLENA because maybe color was still the option for today, but maybe next time I'll do pencil because I always love working with pencil the most. And I feel like there's a few reverse 1999 characters that I saw might be getting released, and I think they're more like historical China-ish themed. I saw one character that I'm really interested in, so maybe I'll look into them and we can do a drawing session or sketching session again with pencil, maybe in real time. We'll see. I just miss drawing with pencil again. I think other than doing that one ASMR drawing like my hyperfixation characters, I didn't really do as much pencil work towards like the end of 2025. I mostly did marker and pen for some reason. One was because I was filming shorts, but then two, I was just liking the bright colors for the most part, but it does give me a little bit of a hand cramp here and there. And I think that's it for today's session. It's one of the only few spreads that I have for the beginning of this year, so hopefully we'll finish off the sketchbook pretty soon. I think it's like maybe 10-ish spreads left, so we're gonna finish this hopefully in the next month or two, and then we can start another new sketchbook journey. But hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing me do a more monochromatic looking spread versus my 2-colored spreads that I've been doing for the last few weeks. Yeah, I think that's it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching me draw Selwyn in a few different outfits and just doing something a little bit more minimalistic, and I will talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!